Looking back on the week that was and forward to the week ahead. It's the Fantasy Football Hustle. Here are your hosts, Brian Drake and Dwain McFarland.
All across the fantasy universe, welcome to week 17 of the Fantasy Football Hustle, powered by Pro Football Focus. We fought all year for this week, this day, this moment. From draft day to grinding waivers to now standing on the doorstep of a fantasy football championship. Breathe it in, folks. These are special times. Moments like this don't come around often. It's time to do what we talk about doing around here all year long, and that's cashing checks and hoisting trophies. Fantasy immortality is at our fingertips, and we need to make the right lineup decisions so our names will live forever in the pantheon of legendary champions of this game we love. Yes, folks, it's time to get serious. It's time to focus. It's time to shine. Screw that. It's time to win. Let's dive into week 17, and there's no better man.
It's time to hustle, Drake. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, can I give you your intro here? There's no one better to do it
There's
with.
hoisting. There's pantheons. This is the best intro ever.
There's cracking beers because we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. It's week 17. It's the Fantasy Football Hustle. Brian Drake alongside PFF.com senior fantasy analyst Dwain McFarland. Well, happy holidays, my friend. Hope you had a great Christmas on the doorstep of New Year's. How did the holidays go for you?
Good, man. How about you? Excellent. Time with family, football. It's been a crazy year, getting to do this full time. And then, it's kind of and I love it, but it's just been nonstop. And so it's kind of a moment, just to reflect, and have a few minutes to take a breath, before we hop in for these last couple of weeks. So absolutely a great time. How about you?
It's awesome, man. And I know between doing this podcast with you and the SiriusXM show with Andrew Erickson, people tweeting at me hey, man, your calls helped me get to a championship. It helped me advance farther than I ever did. I won a couple bucks in DFS. That's awesome. That's what we do this for, man. When we started this thing 4 years ago, we always talk about it. We're just, two dudes in basements hanging out, talking fantasy football. And now, we're doing it on some of the biggest stages in America. And we're so happy that you guys are with us tonight. And we want you to be with us this year and next year, and we can save you a ton of dough doing it next year. Go over to PFF.com. Use promo code ELITEUP. You're going to save 50% off a PFF Elite annual membership for 2022. You're going to get all the rest of 2021, and you're going to get all next year for $99. That's 50% off. I don't want to call it the cover price, but 50% off the full deal. Now, folks, you don't need to take my word for it. Half off anything is freaking awesome. Elite Up at PFF.com. Tell them your boys Drake and McFarland sent you, and you'll be hoisting trophies and cashing checks. Again, Elite Up over at PFF.com. I want to start with this, though, Dwayne. We're going to help a lot of folks tonight. We're going to go through the running backs to add and the utilization report at PFF.com. But Tuesday morning, John Madden, legendary football coach, Super Bowl champion coach, Super Bowl 11, NFL broadcaster, and video game icon, passed away. And I don't know if there's anybody in the sport who could pass and who could affect so many people in so many different ways and have young kids who probably don't even know who John Madden is outside of a video game be affected, and all the way up to older grandpa types, where that's really what John Madden was to me. It's he was the cool grandpa that you wanted to have a beer and watch a football game with, man. He just made football for so many generations of fans, and it's a really sad day to lose him.
Yeah, man. Madden was such a part of my childhood, really. Growing up watching football, he and Pat Summerall were the A team. That happened to coincide, fortunately for me, when, the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls, in the 90s. And so those two were on a ton of Cowboys games. So, I felt like I knew him. I felt like I knew Pat Summerall. I waited every week, my whole week was planned around, like, in high school. Like, I was a football nerd in high school. Like, I loved the game. I was never that great at it, but I always loved it. And like, my whole week was built around like getting to watch the Cowboys play. And so they were just such a part of that. Like, I was just sending my dad some text earlier of like some of these tweets, like the one where he's talking about the Gatorade and stuff. Like, and it's just, he feels the same way about it. So it's just, you know, it's one of those weird things. Like, you know, I know he doesn't know me. I don't know him, but like, I felt like I did, like you said, like he had this quality about him that even though he was broadcasting to millions and millions of people, you just felt like he was talking to you. And, you know, he taught me about football, a game that I love. I just loved his approach. Like, he had a great personality. He drew you in with that warmth, but at the same time, like, he talked football. He was a former coach. Like, he knew what this stuff took. And he just, like, I don't know anyone that's been able to blend it like that well. Right. Like, we love, you know, some of the players when they first come out of the game now, because, you know, they're so tuned into it, but Madden just did a great job of being able to do that for, you know, over decades, and not to mention the game. Like, you know, my son like knows so much about football, like just from playing Madden. Like, he can tell you what cover 2, cover 3, cover 4 match. Like, he knows all this stuff, not because he reads tons of football books, because he plays this game, you know? So it's just, to your point, like, it's amazing. Like, you know, the breadth, like, you know, of people and different, you know, audiences and different, you know, like some people that play Madden don't even really watch football, but they love to play the game Madden, you know? And so just to think of all the impact he's had, you're right. It's insane. It makes me sad. You know, I'm so glad that they got this documentary done, you know, before, you know, he passed.
And you were telling me that FS1 is airing it a couple of times this week.
Yeah, it's on right now, and then it'll be on tomorrow night again at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
So Wednesday, if you're listening to this Wednesday morning when it comes out as a podcast, you know, check tonight on FS1. You'll be able to, you know, DVR it or whatever you have to do. And I grew up in a house. My dad was a truck mechanic and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Like, we weren't loaded by any means. And one of my favorite things I would look forward to was the Christmas gift I would get every year from my uncle. He would always get me a video game. And typically he would get me the new Sega Genesis Madden game for that year. You know, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, all those. I had all of them, you know, and my Eagles were terrible in every single one of them. But it was just the excitement of getting
my brother and I wore that game out, man. Like, dude, we would come up with new ways to play that game. I remember we would play, he would be the Lions and I would be the Cowboys, and you weren't allowed to pass. You think running backs don't matter? Josh Hermsmeyer, yeah, whatever. Like, go play Madden. No, we would, I would have to be Emmett. He would be Barry Sanders. The way you won the game was who had the most rushing yards and touchdowns. It was like fantasy, basically. Before fantasy was fantasy, we were dividing. I can't even remember by what. And then you got 6 points for touchdowns. And like, that's how we would win the game. It didn't matter who won the game. So who had the most rushing yards and most points from their running back. And you could only run. So like, we're trying to stop the run the whole time.
I used to piss off my good buddy, Aaron. I'm sure he doesn't listen to this show. We were buddies years and years ago. And I would run the play clock down to 1, snap it at 1. We're running the football. And I would drain an entire 5-minute quarter in Madden. I'm running the rock all day long. I mean, just like, what 12-year-old plays like a dick? Like, you know, you're out there running the ball in Madden. You know, the guy's playing like
back then we played
punt
more
return
like that.
defense against me.
Then I started playing against my son, and he would never punt on 4th down. Like, that's what's funny. I tell him now, I was like, dude, like 6 years ago, like you were ahead of like all the masterminds in analytics. Like nobody punts. Everybody goes for it on 4th downs. Well, I'll tell you, Kingsbury's fake sharp, right? He's not real sharp. My son is real sharp though. Like he was doing this stuff. I'd be like, no, dude, you have to punt. I'd be like, no, forget it. Like, you do whatever you do. You play this game. It's like it's on his own 30. You know, it's 4th and 4, and he's just going for it. You know,
Cliff Kingsbury just ruined anyone who is carrying Matt Prater as a fantasy kicker, because the guy doesn't kick anymore. Now the game he gets out there, he misses. But regardless. But yeah, rest in peace, John Madden. I'd love to hear some of you guys in the chat share your stories, your memories of John Madden. I'm sure we're going to hear so much more about him over the week. So the other big news of the day is the NFL changed their COVID protocols. I mean, I don't want to say this is don't ask, don't tell. If you remember that from many years ago, but it's pretty much what it is. They're knocking things down. They don't care if you're vaxxed, unvaxxed. Bottom line, 5 days from when you get tested, you can pretty much come back. They're going to put you on the honor system, And this is to get you through the playoffs. They want to get these games in. They don't want star players out. The networks don't want star players out. So, they're going to test you on Monday. You ain't getting tested again. Let's be honest, Dwayne.
Yeah, there's a bunch of old white dudes making decisions. Like, let's just be honest. Same stuff's been going on for forever, Drake. Like, let's just do whatever makes money.
Yep.
But it is what it is. So, we're not in charge. We're just here to talk fantasy football.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of what we do. We only have to break it. We don't have to get political about it. We just have to break down what does it mean for fantasy.
Yeah. And we're in championship week, folks. I hope you're playing for some money out there. And if not, hey, make some DFS lineups. Shout out to your old counterpart over at Establish the Run, Adam Levitan, second place in a major contest this weekend, $250,000.
So happy for him. If you folks haven't listened, he's done 2 pods since. He did a post pod with Leone breaking down that game. And then he did just a solo pod, the normal solo pod that Adam does. And I listened to it today while I was out, on a run. It was awesome. I'm just so happy for the guy.
Yeah, he's one of the guys in the industry we've never had on. We've had Leone, we've had Silva a couple times. I'm a big fan of Adam Levitan. I like the work he does. I love his grind. I like the fact that him and I share a love of washing our hands, being germaphobes, and sitting in our basement.
Have Leone? I think we've talked about having Leone. I don't know if we've had him. You've had him on.
I had Leone. I had him on the Sirius.
Yeah.
It's all one big hustle
awesome.
family.
Hey, he's awesome though. Love Leone too.
If he's listening tonight, let us know. We'll let you on. So yeah, shout out to him. If you guys are doing DFS this weekend, we'll get you through that also. So let's say here, I want to start with the running backs that could be of influence for week 17 on the waiver wire. And let's start with my Philadelphia Eagles, because Boston Scott, I believe, is going to be the running back of choice for this weekend's contest at the football team, because Miles Sanders has a broken hand. He's not going to play. Jordan Howard has a stinger. Now, he had a stinger 2 years ago in 2019. He missed 6 games with that stinger. So I know an MRI came back. They didn't find any damage, but I would be very, very leery of Jordan Howard playing this week. So we're down to Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott. I think, Dwayne, it's the Boston Scott show mixed in with probably a lot more Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. I don't know that Jalen Hurts will get that much more. I mean, it's kind of like he's already gets 35 to 40% of the design rushing attempts. Like, it's pretty hard for a quarterback to go higher. I think it'll be more. I think he'll probably be about the same. Maybe he gets even more work inside the 5, but I don't see them running Jalen Hurts 50% of plays. Like, at some point, you kind of have to cap it with your quarterback. But I mean, what do I know? Maybe they'll come out and just run like the wing T all game. I have no clue. But for me, it is Boston Scott. If you look at, so look, we're talking about championship lineups, and for the most part, they're probably pretty good lineups. Now, I know there's been some weirdness with COVID. And so you had a lot of really good teams get knocked out that were without Kelsey, things like that. So there are definitely some things that could mean there's some weaker teams in the championship game. And so your team better than we do. But I kind of tiered things today in the utilization report. And there were really 3 names that I thought, even on pretty stacked championship teams, there are 3 guys that have a chance to start that are on waivers today. And Boston Scott is one of those. And so, like you mentioned, Miles Sanders being out, I think he at a minimum takes over that role. Interesting, last week, Jordan Howard had the the long down and distance work. I guess it was just a pass blocking thing because Sanders was seeing enough routes and things like that. But Boston Scott's really the better passing down back than Jordan Howard. I expect him to see probably 45 to 50% of the rushing attempts, on Sunday. Maybe 40%, Hurts has 30%, and then you got another 20% that you give to Gainwell. That would be my guess, Drake. But I think there's upside, for Scott to be towards 60%. And if he hits that on the Eagles, the second heaviest rush team in the NFL, we all know that's what the Eagles want to do. If you look at their utilization, talk about a team that really switched. What's funny is, and we'll talk about this later, I'm sure, but the Dolphins are now kind of making this pivot. They obviously don't have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts that they can just run the ball with all the time. But if you look at the Eagles, in the transformation that they made and I know we've covered this in the past, but just to kind of reiterate it, in the first few weeks, these pass rates, Drake, so the drop back rates, 91%, 82%, 69%, 73%. There were games they ran the ball 9% of plays, 18% of plays. Then you look at it since week 8, here's the percentage of the time they ran the ball, 69, 58, 59, 60, 46%. And that was in a game where they never led by 4 or more points the whole game. 56% of the time, 54% of the time. And last week, 49% of the time they ran the ball. So, I mean, it's a very, very run-heavy team. So even with Jalen Hurts getting work, there's enough to go around because they are so run-heavy. So even if Scott does have to deal with Jordan Howard, I think that makes him a low-end RB2, Drake. But if Jordan Howard is out, and to your point, like having him miss games in the past with the stinger, I think that's – who knows what's going to happen there. I lean into you. Like, you know the Eagles better than me. I did go back and research that injury. The only thing I would say is they didn't really like Jordan Howard then. It was kind of like, we got Jordan Howard. It wasn't like he was this great starter, got hurt, and it knocked him out. It's kind of like, let's just put him in mothballs like he sucks. Like kind of what it felt like more. But to your point, like there's a good chance he doesn't play. So if he doesn't, I think he's a high-end RB2. The only reason I don't put him in the RB1 conversation, Drake, is because we can never trust Philly's coaching staff fully because they've shown, like, if anything, like they're very dedicated to making sure this is some sort of rotation. So I think Gainwell has some sort of role. You can't just completely write him off.
Oh, no question about it. Over the last 3 weeks, the Washington football team is 29th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed. They've allowed 469 rush yards over the last 3 weeks. A lot of that being to Philadelphia just a few weeks ago. But I mean, Dallas just destroyed them this past week.
Washington sucks, man. They don't ever lead in games. Like, so, I mean, they've trailed by 4 or more, 90%, 53%, 98% of their snaps in the last 3 weeks. Like this team is done. They are done. Like COVID has hit them. The morale was already low. Like, look, I'm not just saying professional athletes give up. They all have a job to do. They're doing their thing. But like this team is finished, Drake. Like they are. What is there? Like, I guess it is the NFC, East, and you've got like these old traditions and everything. But I fully expect Philly to just work them on the ground.
Ron Rivera is not a very good coach. I know this is a fantasy show, but Ron Rivera.
We say that, but he's a guy that can make his guys, fight. I mean, I don't want to say he's just a bad.
He
coach.
should be someone's.
He's not an analytics guy.
He's a defensive coordinator. And he's been a coach for 11 years now. He has 3 winning seasons. One of them, his whole winning percentage is propped up by a 15-win year, fluky in Carolina. The guy hasn't had a winning season. They won the NFC East last year at 7-9. It was the worst thing that ever happened to the franchise because then they knocked them down in the draft. They couldn't get Trey Lance or Mac Jones. Speaking of Trey Lance, little segue here. He's going to start this week for the San Francisco 49ers, and we already have questions popping up in the chat room about Trey Lance, if he should be started over guys like Kyler Murray or Tua or maybe Tyler Huntley. And I've seen guys on Twitter saying, here's who I would start Trey Lance over. And it's a very short list, of guys who would play ahead of Trey Lance. I mean, we know Trey Lance cannot.
Look, I like Trey Lance, but I think people have lost their ever-loving minds.
I agree.
The guy, can barely complete 50% of his passes. Could he come out and have a great game? Yeah, but have we not learned yet this year? Oh, Justin Fields is going to kill. Justin Fields is going to be awesome. Justin Fields is going to be. Justin Fields is not going to be awesome. How long did that take? And it's not to say that Trey Lance can't, but I've seen people saying they would start him over Aaron Rodgers. No freaking way. There's no way I would do that. And there's people I respect in the industry. Look, you have your own opinions. Like I have mine, but I would not do that in a championship game. Like that is just getting too freaking cute. I don't need Trey Lance to give me a unicorn 30-point performance when I have Aaron Rodgers sitting there. Give me the 22, 24 with the same upside that Aaron Rodgers is going to give me. Trey Lance, you're hoping he rushes for 100 yards. That's what you need. And, that doesn't always happen. Lamar Jackson doesn't get 100 yards rushing every time he goes out there. Robert Griffin didn't get 100 yards every time he went out there rushing, So, I mean, I feel like it's getting a little out of hand. I like Trey Lance. I really do. I want to see the guy play well. But look, the last time we saw him, let's just call it what it is. He sucked.
He's not a good – he's like I've been saying about Jalen Hurts all season long. Great athlete, can't throw the football. Couldn't throw it from me to you on a screen, Dwain. We're 3 inches apart right now on someone's iPhone.
And you have to be careful with these young players, Drake. And we all do it because we want to gravitate to the young new player.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes we want things so bad it can distort our reality. And I think that's kind of what's going on with Trey Lance right now. To me, we should learn our lesson with what's going on. I treat him like a Taysom Hill. Treat him like a Justin Fields. Treat him if you want, like Jalen Hurts. I mean, but I feel like Hurts has proven this, right? So, I mean, I feel like Trey Lance, you treat him like a low-end QB1 at best this week. If you've got a really good quarterback, though, you should stick with the quarterback that you have.
I agree.
I know it's the Texans. The Texans are one of these teams that have actually shown up to play a couple of times this year against other good players or against other good teams. So I would just be
Justin Herbert.
I would just be careful with it. I feel like it's getting too cute. I'm not saying don't, like, say for example, like there are, like, if you've been sitting there and let's say you're starting Kirk Cousins, let's say, you've been starting, I mean, you could even have argued Joe Burrow, right? Last week, people would have benched Joe Burrow for this guy and look what you would have missed, so, I mean, there are some quarterbacks that I think once you get down to that low end of the QB1s, you can put him in the conversation. But when you start saying that there's like 3 people or 4 people or whatever, I haven't seen all these tweets, but that you would start over Trey Lance, I think it's getting a bit aggressive.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And
there's a range of outcomes. You just have to remember that, folks. And so your team. If you're up against some stacked team and you feel like you need the upside, but like, do we really think that Trey Lance has more upside than Aaron Rodgers? Like, really?
No.
Like, come on, man.
Now, in that game, we may also see the return of Elijah Mitchell. So we haven't seen Mitchell in a long time now, but when we do, he usually dominates the backfield, which has been held down recently by Debo Samuel and Jeff Wilson Jr. Do you trust a returning Elijah Mitchell in Week 17 championship week against the Houston Texans?
Yes. I mean, if you've got Elijah Mitchell and he's playing, you're putting him in your lineup, period. Now, I don't like the Trey Lance thing. I'll tell you that. Like, I don't like that ultimately for the backs because I think, that means that's more time that they're going to share. I mean, if you look back at the rushing attempts and things with some of these other teams that have these quarterbacks that run all the time, like it can impact it. But Mitchell has been a big play threat. Like he is outproduced by far what I think most people thought that he would do. You are in the 49ers offense. They are a top 3 run offense, just like what we talked about, with the Eagles. So yeah, absolutely. If Elijah Mitchell's active, and plus it's not like they forced him to play. His knee's been bothering him and they've kept him out. So when they put him in, I'm trusting that like he's ready to go.
You might also be heading to the waiver wire to find Daryl Williams this week because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not going to play. So we're going to have Daryl Williams, the mentor, stepping back into a lead role. And Daryl Williams, Dwayne, has been sneaky good this year. What a productive, just like good football player Daryl Williams is. And I'm actually kind of happy for him. He's going to get this full-time role here with the Chiefs at the Bengals in Week 17. If he's available, is Daryl Williams a guy you're confident putting as your RB2 or flex this week?
I think he's definitely a mid-range RB2 this week. I expect him to handle all the passing down work like he was already doing. And then I expect him to handle about half of what Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to leave behind, plus what he already had. And then I think Derek Gore will really be the change of pace guy. So yeah, I'm good with Daryl Williams. I think he should be starting probably in 90% even or so, 85, 90% of these championship rosters, unless you're in like an 8-team league, then you're probably stacked enough. You're not worrying about it. Once you start getting into the 10-teamers, the 12-teamers, most likely he and Boston Scott should be in starting lineups.
Daryl Williams available in around 40% of Yahoo leagues. So take a look tonight and tomorrow, see if he is available. Let's see. What'd you think of the situation in Tampa? We had Ronald Jones getting the start for the injured Leonard Fournette, and he looked better than, we love to crap on Ronald Jones on this show, but Ronald Jones got the job done with a lot of volume. We also saw Keyshawn Vaughn rip off a long run. They get the Jets this week, so that is just as juicy as it gets. Where do you have Ronald Jones ranked this week? And even, let's say no one's going to play Keyshawn Vaughn, but maybe in a DFS lineup or something like that. What are your thoughts on this backfield?
Yeah, I wouldn't touch Keyshawn Vaughn. Only 22% of the rushing attempts. He has the passing down work. What is that going to be worth against the Jets, where the Bucs should be leading by 20 by halftime? Like Keyshawn Vaughn, I don't see having much of a role. You really have the Bucs also. They face the least long down and distance plays per game, on average, like it's under 15%. So like, there's not a big demand, right, for the long down distance and the 2-minute offense probably in this game, just like last week. So I'm not feeling Keyshawn Vaughn. You might feel him in a different game script, but I think this is all Ronald Jones all day. Handled 63% of the rushing attempts last week. I expect him to be between 60 and 70% again this week. And to what you mentioned, like, it's a great matchup against the Jets. I mean, the Jets, they're one of 5 teams over the last 6 weeks that they're giving up over 30 rushing attempts per game because they're losing all the time. I mean, that's just really what it comes down to. So the Bucs also this last week, we saw for the first time really this season that they didn't just continue to throw the ball even when they were ahead. So if you look at it, this, with having Mike Evans out due to the hamstring, Chris Godwin gone for the season, they really kind of changed their game plan up a little bit. This last week they led by 4 more points on 84% of the plays, but they decided to run the ball more. Whereas previously, so here are the games, before this last week, where they actually only dropped back to pass 52%, leading on 84% of plays. So that means they ran the ball 48% of the time. So their drop back rates in previous games where they led by at least 70% of the plays by 4 or more points before it had been, now remember, 52% was this week. Before that in the season, it had been 67, 68, 57, 56, 67, 67. So they had still been a pass-first team even when leading, and that really changed this last week. We also saw them using more 12 personnel. So they are making some adaptations to their offense. I think the other thing is they probably want to get through to the playoffs healthy with their pass catchers. So I would expect a heavy, heavy dose of the run game this coming weekend, and Ronald Jones will be in my top 6.
What if I told you folks I could get you a lead back in an offense that is available in 98% of Yahoo leagues, who scored a touchdown last week and had over 15 carries? Well, that guy's available, and it's Dare Ogunbowale of the Jacksonville Jaguars, filling in for an injured James Robinson. Of course, Carlos Hyde also now on IR. Ogunbowale carried 17 times for 57 yards and a touchdown. Now, this week, I'm sure they're going to have some other backs up available. I know in Dwain's utilization report, he mentions Reichwell Armstead. What's your thought process here on Ogunbowale? It's a tough matchup. They're playing the Patriots. So unless he gets, I think, a lot of pass down work, I mean, really, how good is he going to be? Maybe as a cheap DFS play, but what's your thoughts here on Ogunbowale?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Rex Burkhead last week, which worked out, right?
Ask Levitan.
I do think he's going to be, he's going to be involved. I don't know how much, though. I don't think he'll have an every down role like last week. He could lead the backfield, though. Like, that's in the range of outcomes. But there's also the range of outcomes that all of a sudden, like, he just handles 30, 40% of the work. And it's just a terrible team. So the way I look at Ogunbowale is, if you're in a deeper format league and you're hurting, like, you can probably use him this week as your RB2, and you're just going to stick him in there and cross your fingers. But he's not a guy that I'm trying to force into lineups, if that makes sense. Like, I want to be a little more cautious with him, just like I would be with Burkhead. Versus the other guys that we name, the upside is so much higher for Boston Scott and for Daryl Williams, even though they can have maybe even a little. I think their roles will be very similar to Ogunbowale, if not better. But even if they're a little bit less, there's more margin for error because they're better offenses, or in the Eagles' case, they run all the time. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at the Jaguars, they're always trailing. So it is the positive for Ogunbowale is that we have seen him be this long down and distance, this 2-minute back in the pass. Like, so he's good in pass pro. He could catch in a PPR format. I like him a lot more, Drake, than I do in standard. Standard, I pretty much would just be staying away from Ogunbowale this weekend. If I've got a PPR format, half PPR format, I would be willing to get him in there as my RB2 if I had to. But again, I'm not trying to move him up my board and force him over other guys. He'll be a borderline RB2 for me this week.
Imagine, you made the playoffs and now it's the championship week and you're rolling out a lineup of like Tyler Huntley, Dare Ogunbowale, geez Louise, Daryl Williams, Boston Scott. It's crazy, man. What a year in fantasy football. That's why grinding the waiver wire, has never been more, prevalent, never been a bigger factor than it has been this year. And I don't think this next guy, Dwain, is a factor for this week, but what a story. And we're getting a lot of people asking us about it. and that is Cam Akers is likely going to be active for the Los Angeles Rams this week after suffering an Achilles injury, which nobody comes back from. This is unheard of. Even these Twitter fantasy doctors are blown away by this. But, the Rams are now down. They just lost Daryl Henderson. He's not going to play. So it's Sony Michelle time. And boy, does Sony Michelle look good. 27 rushing attempts for 131 and a rushing score this past week. This offense is just humming now as the Rams look to win the NFC, or I believe they did win the NFC West. But I can't in good faith tell anybody to pick up Cam Akers. The only way he possibly plays is if Friday Sony Michelle comes down with COVID.
Yeah, that, or if for some reason your league plays a championship round in week 18, then, I think he's a fine, pick up, because then you pick up that much more runway, right? That something can happen to Sony Michelle. I think it takes something happening to Sony Michelle for Akers to be, I don't know why the Rams would force him right into a heavy workload. I think, maybe he plays and is the change of pace back just a little bit, but he could also just be the emergency back like we've seen Daryl Henderson be. I think what they'll try to do is probably throw the ball a little bit more and protect their backs and not work them as heavy. They've got plenty of receivers they can get the ball to, and they still need to win. And they'll probably try to reduce the workload on the backs that way versus trying to say, well, we're going to run it 50% of the time. And, 30% of those carries are going to go to Akers. Now, I could be completely wrong. This one really is a guess, Drake. I'm just blown away, in hat tip to Akers, in his ability, and it just speaks to the medicine that we have today to even have a chance, to play in this game. But I don't want him anywhere near a fantasy lineup this weekend. Imagine
that, people trusting medicine. Who would have thought? That's another podcast hosted by some kicker. So
my wife had me watching some show last night, Don't Look Up with Leo DiCaprio and these other folks, and it was funny. She's sitting there watching it, and it's about an asteroid heading to Earth. And it's all about the science, and they can't get anyone to believe them. I don't want to spoil the movie. And I looked over at it. I was like, this is about COVID, right? This is all just really making fun of the last 2 years, because the things he'll say in it, he's like, we have a picture of it. We know it's real. He's talking about all these things. And I'm just like, this is about COVID. This is a show making fun of the human race. And it's talking, social media is a big part of it. Anyway. So yeah, I'm sorry. Where were we, Drake? I don't know where I just went.
We're in Buffalo.
We're in Buffalo. Okay.
Where
it's definitely a lot colder in Buffalo than it is here today. 77 degrees.
Yes, I live just down the thruway from Buffalo, and it's snowing outside my house right now, and it's in the 30s. Speaking of COVID, the Bills receiver corps has been hit hard by that, and they've got
or have they now?
Yeah, or have they?
I probably need to go back and edit this part of the utilization report,
because with the new protocols, it looks like we're probably going to see Gabe Davis back. We're going to see Cole Beasley back, and that's going to wipe out maybe a great opportunity for Isaiah McKenzie.
Saying that he feels bad with all the heat he's had, he's going to play. So I probably just need to take McKenzie out. Look, if Cole Beasley's out, Isaiah McKenzie then is a wide receiver 3 with upside. So he's had wide receiver 4 and wide receiver 11 finishes in the last 2 years where he's had to fill in for Cole Beasley. So, you could obviously say he has Dwain. Why is he not a wide receiver 2? Cole Beasley doesn't do this every week either, right? He's still the slot receiver. He plays on a great team, but I wouldn't get overly carried away. I loved, McKenzie last week, talked about him for DFS, but yeah, it's going to take Cole Beasley being out. He is not going to be a factor if Gabe Davis is out. That's Emmanuel Sanders takes that outside role. Kumaro can play more outside. They don't play Isaiah McKenzie outside. So it's strictly it's a Cole Beasley thing. So don't get sucked in if all of a sudden you're Gabe Davis is inactive, so I'm going to use Isaiah McKenzie. No, it's Cole Beasley only. If Cole Beasley's out, you can use him. If he's not, you can't.
I hope you guys listened to the solo pod that I did last week, because I referenced one Isaiah McKenzie. Hopefully you guys could put him in a lineup or two, and I did. I had 2 DFS lineups score 198 points this past week, and I think I won $60 because I play in these, dirtbag $1 contests, the free KFC tournament or whatever to try to win. Did
you get a bucket of chicken?
A Happy Meal or so? Yeah, I got $60. So such is life. And the same could be said of Josh Palmer. in Los Angeles with the Chargers because we could now see Mike Williams return, Jalen Guyton, guys who are out, and Palmer 5 for 43 and a touchdown. Palmer more of a dynasty league guy because Mike Williams is a unrestricted free agent in the offseason, and they drafted Josh Palmer out of Tennessee to basically fill that role, him and Guyton. So just got to hang on to him for next year.
Yeah, for like he's looking really impressive for dynasty. Like the good thing about him is if Guyton or Williams is out, like he has a path to targets. If Williams is out, that's the bigger one. If you look at, he filled in obviously for Keenan Allen a few weeks back rather than it being Mike Williams. It was really him. And he posted a wide receiver 15 finish. Obviously last week, he filled in for Mike Williams, and that was a wide receiver 22 finish. But man, this guy's looking versatile. Targets per route run had already been pretty strong, that's why that's a metric that we like. Not that it's an end all be all, but it's kind of an indicator of, okay, when the player's out there, if they're getting targets, if all of a sudden now they see an increase in routes, what could that potentially do? It's kind of a math equation that we can actually work in our heads. So yeah, with Palmer, I do like him for dynasty. If you get Mike Williams out of the picture, that's really where I think he becomes the wide receiver 3 this week. If it's just Guyton out, it's a little bit less because then you're gonna have Eckler back. He's gonna get fed. Keenan Allen's gonna get fed, and then you got him battling with Mike Williams for next in the pecking order.
Here's a sneaky play, and he's available in 45-50% of Yahoo leagues right now, and it's the first name Dwain mentions in the utilization report this week. And I'm sure many folks have written him off, and it's Elijah Moore of the New York Jets. He's slated to come off of injured reserve, and he's got to clear the COVID list. But if he does that, he's going to come back and play Tampa Bay this week. And the Jets, they're looking for pass catchers, and it can't just be Braxton Berrios out there. Zach Wilson loves throwing the ball to the guy. He'll feed it to him 10 times a week. So Elijah Moore, Dwain, sneaky play. In DFS, no one's going to own Elijah Moore. Maybe in your season-long league, wide receiver 3, flex. What do you think?
I think he's a wide receiver 2 with upside. Like if he plays, I think you have to try to get him into your lineups. Like he's the guy of everybody that's sitting on waivers today. Besides, I have him in my tier 1. It's Elijah Moore, Boston Scott, and Daryl Williams. They're most likely guys that can play in almost any lineup this weekend, right? In any format. I know you guys will send me pictures of ones they can't, and that's good. I'm glad your team's that stacked. But they're the most likely to be able to make it into lineups. Let's put it that way. But yeah, for Elijah Moore, I don't know what else we want from the guy. He's a complete alpha against man coverage, which is one of the first things I'm looking for in a receiver, especially a young receiver. So the quarterback trusts him whenever they're in man coverage. He's getting 28% of the targets per route run versus man coverage. I put all this stuff in the utilization report for you guys based on all the feedback. Every team, there's a chart in there about targets per route run and target shares versus man and zone coverage, since you guys love that stuff so much. So I appreciate all the feedback. Keep trying to make the product better. But Elijah Moore really pops in all these different metrics. And super excited about what 2022 holds for Elijah Moore. I've done my very first pass, it ranks, and he's sitting right there around wide receiver 18. I don't like the Jets, and I get scared of the quarterback situation, but he's just looked so good. He might have been more close to borderline wide receiver 2, but just hard for me to not love Elijah Moore with what he's done.
Sticking with the Jets, and we've already talked about the Jets too much, but Michael Carter took over a massive role with the team in week 16. Over 70% of the snaps. It looks like they're kind of moving to a 2-man backfield. He's a good player, Michael Carter, out of North Carolina. What are your thoughts on him in terms of maybe being an RB2 or flex for somebody in their title game?
Yeah, I like him as an RB2. It's the big thing, anytime you have a team like this that's not very good, you can't have a 3-way rotation. You prefer it would be 1 back, but you definitely cannot have 3. And that was the positive. Ty Johnson only had 2% of the snaps this last week. Double first name, Austin Walter. He didn't play at all. And that's kind of been a nuisance, right? You've always had, or there's been weeks where Tevin Coleman is the 3rd guy. That, if you go back and you look at the weeks where really Michael Carter did the best, is really when it was down to 2 backs. And back whenever he was doing well, the 3rd back was Tevin Coleman. It was kind of the biggest nuisance. But this past week, they were close in rushing attempts, 42% for Coleman and 48% for Carter. But to your point, Carter had 73% of the snaps, handled all of the passing down work, 67% of the long down and distance, 88% of the 2-minute offense. Was also the preferred option whenever they had 1 to 2 yards to go and it's 3rd or 4th down, which is your short down and distance work, 80% of the snaps in those scenarios. So yeah, for me, Carter is an RB2 this week. It is a tough matchup against the Bucs. So I like him better in PPR, like him better in half point PPR, like him less in standard formats this weekend.
Every weekend when I do the show on SiriusXM, and please, folks, listen in to Andrew Erickson and I, Saturdays 3 to 5, Sundays 7 to 9, I get people asking about Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I try to impress upon people, like, listen, you should be starting this guy. Like, there's not that many other wide receivers in fantasy right now who I would be playing over Amon-Ra St. Brown. Over the last month, so 4 games, there's only 4 players with more targets than him. He has 11.5 targets a game over the last 4 weeks, and it's Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, and Chris Godwin. I mean, this guy is a stud for fantasy football. No one wants to believe it. I don't care, but they have no Hutchinson anymore. Swift isn't playing. He's the only game in town, folks. Like, where do you fall on St. Brown? Like, I'm begging people to put him in the lineups.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are at this point.
Oh,
I mean,
they're not.
I think he's a high. Well, I mean, a lot of these people play in 18 leagues. Like, so, I mean, I get it.
Find
like,
two
you play
more
in an
friends.
18 league, like you're not going to use Elijah Moore. You're not going to use, St. Brown. But for the most part, like, yeah, St. Brown should be in most lineups this weekend. I mean, like he had 40% of the targets like last week. He's been over 30% like 4 weeks in a row. He's all of the offense right now for the Lions, and he continues, to perform. I see some folks saying, hey, how would you ever start, Moore coming off of, IR? Like everything I'm reading about him, like conditioning and all that, like is supposed to be fine. Like he just has to clear the protocols. Like, so the way I look at it, this is your wide receiver 36, 26, 1, 27, 3, 40, 8. Like, dude, that's Jamar Chase. Like, I'm not sitting somebody that plays that well. Like that looks just like Jamar Chase's pitches, like over a stretch. Like the booms are huge, the 1s and the 3s, and he only has 1 outside the top 36 in his last 7 starts. So like Elijah Moore, to me, like if he's playing, like wow, like I will really struggle to not play him unless I'm in a really shallow format.
I just want to touch on a guy that we've always been high on, and it's T. Higgins. Our buddy Trevor Sikma over at PFF put this out, and it's T. Higgins over the last 5 weeks compared to other wide receivers is second in PFF receiving grade. He's second in receiving yards, second in receiving touchdowns, first in first down receptions, and first in receptions of 15-plus yards. Man, oh man, and he was killing it. I had him in a couple of DFS lineups this week. Man, he is just coming on like gangbusters. What a stud.
Amazing. Like, I mean, really, he's their alpha right now. Like, they're both great players, but like T. Higgins, it was Jamar Chase over the first half of the season, and the second half is T. Higgins now that he's healthy. They're both great players. Like, wow, if you have Joe Burrow in Dynasty, like you just have to be elated, like to have these kind of weapons, around him. I think T. Higgins is like probably the thing I get more DMs and hit ups on Twitter around T. Higgins than I do anything, for people just saying like, wow, thank you so much for really like beating the drum around T. Higgins like 5 weeks ago and saying like, he's still about to blow up. Like it's still going to get big. It's still going to get big. Like I was doing that after he had like his wide receiver 23, 25, and 19 finish. And I was like, there's still meat on the bone, like here with T. Higgins. So super excited for those folks that were able to go grab him. I've gotten a ton of messages on that one, helping people win league championships, which is awesome because we like to help people do that stuff, Drake.
Absolutely. If you need a defense for this week, watch the Carson Wentz situation, because the Raiders could be a really good play against Sam Ehlinger and a Colts-led offense that may not throw the football. The Browns against the Steelers. The Steelers, that offensive line's a turnstile. Big Ben can't get out of the way. And Bears at the Giants. The Bears could destroy this week in DFS against a Giants team that just can't get out of its own way. That's a tough watch there in New York, Dwain. I don't know if you caught any of their game the other day with Jake Fromm. And
let's be honest, fantasy football, we love it. The NFL has sucked for 4 weeks. Like these slates have been god freaking awful. Like, thank God we have fantasy to get us through it. Like, because just some of the games, oh my goodness. And, some of it's not their fault. It's the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
Jesus. Like there's been more games that are not watchable on these slates, than are watchable for sure. And you get the team shutting players down now. Like it's crazy. Mm-hmm. Shirley's cracking me up. She says, already have Jamar Chase playing the chase role. She's talking about my Eli Moore comment.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
If you already have Jamar Chase playing the Jamar Chase role, yes, surely touche. You got it.
Dwayne, you're right, though, because there's a lot of bad teams. There's a lot of bad quarterbacks. And we say it all the time. There's an old adage, if you don't have a quarterback, you need to spend every second of every day trying to get one. And there's a lot of teams out there that should be doing that. Washington, and we saw on Monday Night Football, the Saints. I mean, the Saints are terrible. Alvin Kamara, I feel so bad for this guy. They have no weapons on the outside. He's doing nothing. They can't creatively get him the football. My God, what a bad situation.
Did you see this? Though, I'm not to get off on too much of a tangent, but just since we've talked about some of these rookie receivers, what a year though, Drake, for rookie receivers. Jalen Waddle, some people ask what was the biggest hit? Jalen Waddle is probably my biggest one. For me personally, I drafted him on every team. And so, it kind of hurt because he had a bye week and he's missed some time, but he was back this last weekend and it was huge. But just these receivers overall, and their ability, in the targets that they're demanding, this is a really, really good class of receivers. If you look, even guys that we haven't got to see fully yet, Drake, because they've battled some injuries, Elijah Moore is an example. Kadarius Toney flashed things that we didn't think, right? We haven't fully got to see the unveil of Rashad Bateman. We know Jamar Chase, right? We know some of these other guys are awesome, but it's just a loaded class. I'm just excited about it. What it means for the future of fantasy football. We got a really nice infusion of just studs at the wide receiver spot.
Even second tier guys, when you look down the road at a Nico Collins and Joshua Palmer and these kind of guys that you're drafting in your second and third round of your dynasty leagues, those are the guys that are going to be the wide receiver 2s on their team for the years to come. Nico Collins could be the number 1 on his team in a year with Davis Mills, because Brandon Cooks, we know he's on the
really
team every 10 minutes.
What's really exciting is how often these quarterbacks are targeting these receivers when they get single man coverage, which is what you see for the elites in the league. The really good receivers, when their quarterbacks see them get single man coverage, they're going to them. And I'm going to do some more research on this. This is off season because this is some new data we're really working on at PFF, where we chart not just the throws and grade the throws that are targets, but we're grading every route, kind of doing more what, really the pioneering stuff that Matt Harmon has done. He's led the way in this area. So it's just doing some things similar to what he does. And so I'm really excited about digging into the data. But with these rookies, targets per route run versus single man coverage, Elijah Moore, 27.1% target rate. Jamar Chase, 27%. Jalen Waddle, 26.5%. He does get to play the slot more. Your guy next, 25.5% to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Kadarius Toney, 24%. Kyle Pitts, 23%. It's crazy what these guys are doing right out of the gate.
Yeah, it's good because that's what we draft in dynasty leagues. We hammer those wide receivers, and it's paying off for all of us. Let me ask you this.
Smith, 15.8%.
Oh,
Come on.
Well,
come on. We got to get this guy the ball more. Come on.
Yeah, you're telling me. We need to get a quarterback. So
I love his RoboCop arm he's got going. He's like Gronk out there, but he weighs 112 pounds. He's wearing Gronk's freaking, arm brace.
I wonder who weighs more out of me and Devonta Smith. I'm 5'11", 150. Just all pure steel and sex appeal.
Does he get to wear his brace when he weighs in, or do you have to take that off?
Yeah, sure. I'll take the beer out of my hand. Let me ask you this. Week 17, Fantasy Football Championship. You made it. You're playing for all the glory. Names versus production. And I'm looking at guys like Terry McLaurin, who the last time he played the Eagles had just a pair of catches. The Eagles barely give up anything to number 1 wide receivers. Saquon Barkley, who might as well be on the side of a milk carton. He's lost. Alvin Kamara in this new quarterbackless offense. I don't want to start any of these guys. Just because they're a big name, that, what does that mean for me in week 17 playing for a title? Who would you rather start this week? Alvin Kamara or Daryl Williams?
Jesus. I haven't done all my ranks yet, but I would still probably struggle to rank Daryl Williams ahead of Alvin Kamara. I got to look at it. But I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from. The Saints basically minus Trevor Siemian sucks for everyone besides the quarterback. And that's only if it's, Taysom Hill. Which we had talked about that being a potential problem. Obviously, Mark Ingram being back also sucks.
Yeah, and Saquon, forget about it. McLaurin, really tough matchup. Quarterbacks are garbage.
McLaurin, I'm fine benching. This has been going on for a long time with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like McLaurin is as boom bust as it gets, right? Like he's a good player, but like he's got major quarterback problems.
All right, folks, if you've got a couple of questions for us, feel free to fire them away in the chat, and we will try to get to as many as we can. We're so thankful, too, that you guys come and hang out with us on Tuesday nights. I know a lot of folks listen throughout the week. If you can hang out with us on a Tuesday night at 10 o'clock Eastern, this is when we record the show in the YouTube. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell alert. You can know when we go live. It's a lot of fun. So we appreciate each and every single one of you guys. Let's see. Let me start running through some of these, Dwayne. All right. Our buddy Eric Hutchinson, he's always hanging out with us on Tuesdays. How would you order these four for a standard league this week? Oof, he's digging deep. This might be a 20-team league. Terry McLaurin, Devontae Parker, Kadarius Toney, or Nico Collins? My God.
How many do we need to start? Like McLaurin's at the top of this list. Like, I know what we just said about him, but I mean, I'm starting him over all these guys. I think they're probably in the right order, to be honest. I think Parker, I would probably still have second. I know he had to play outside last night. It was a tough matchup, and they just went to Waddle all inside. The problem with Sony is only 55% of the routes this past week. And then, the quarterback play is absolutely terrible. Like, so I like Tua better than I do, what's going on with the Giants. So I think they're in the right order for me. McLaurin, Parker, Toney, Collins. How about you, Drake?
Oh boy. I mean, Parker's not going to give you a 0 every single week.
Just really, last week.
You look at the quarterback. You know what's crazy about all these? Tua is the best quarterback of these four, and then the next might be Davis Mills with Nico Collins, but you'll likely get Brandon Cooks back.
Man, what another crappy week. Look at these lines: 41, 42, 38, 44, 45, 42, 41, 41. Jesus, 46. Like.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad teams in the NFL right now.
There are.
And they've added an extra playoff team. So, like, my Eagles are going to get in. The Eagles stink, right? Like,
yeah, but the Eagles, you say that, but versus
they're better than a lot of teams, but
they're better than probably half the teams right now. Like, some of this has to do, like, getting hot at the right time, finding your identity as a team at the right time, all those sort of things. There's some teams that the Eagles can be problematic. Like if they can stay and if they don't fall behind. If they fall behind, that's the killer for the Eagles. If they can come out, move the ball on the ground, get a score, put pressure on the other offense, and then if they don't score and their defense has to start taking bigger risks to stop the run, things like that, that's how things compound in a positive way for the Eagles. How it goes wrong is if, they can't score on an opening 2 drives, they get down 10-0, 14-0, and then they have to turn into this all-throwing team, and then that really equals good fantasy football for Jalen Hurts, but bad for Philly fans.
Every week, it's about 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon Eastern time. Dwayne's phone lights up with a text message from me, and what does the text always say?
Jalen Hurts can't throw the forward pass.
He can't. He's terrible. He can't throw the football. My 9-year-old son upstairs could throw the ball better than he can, but I digress. All right, let's get to a few more of these questions here. All right, here we go. Justin B asks, Michael Gallup or Cortland Sutton? He starts
Gallup.
Dak Prescott. He's
Gallup.
saying Gallup, you can't trust any of these Denver guys. Forget about it.
Yeah, and you get a potential. This is one of the nice games on the slate. Arizona at Dallas, man. Like load up. 51.5 points. Dallas favored by 5.5. It's in Dallas. Like this is a game I'm excited about. Not just because I'm a Cowboys fan. It's like going to be one of the best games on the slate. Yeah, I'm definitely going with Gallup. Look, if you look at the Cowboys, they got 3 options to throw to, really 4. The Broncos have 4 or 5. The Cowboys have upside to be a good offense. The Broncos really don't. So that's how I solve the equation.
Yeah, and for DFS purposes, people are going to try to get pieces of this Cardinals-Cowboys game. You also have, I like Rams-Ravens a lot to get in there. Chiefs-Bengals is going to be another hot contest.
Yeah, half these games you look at, there's no bring back. Like like, great, you're going to start. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could find one on the Bills versus the Falcons. You could do Patterson or you could do Pitts. That's not really a good one. You could find and bring back. But, like, that's not the kind of game I want to bring back on. Like, honestly, I'd rather go naked with Buffalo players and not even bring back, like, a Falcons player. Like, I just don't. Buffalo throws all the time anyway, so you don't always have to have a bring back with them. But yeah, what a nasty slate. Detroit and Seattle, there's your game, Drake.
That's the game. I was just going to say that. That's the game. Amon-Ra St. Brown, bring it back with Tyler Lockett. Right there. I guarantee both score. I'll talk to you next week about that. My filthy picks here at Scrub Wide Receivers. All right. Ryan asked us 1 point PPR tight end. Freiermuth's out, isn't he? He's got a concussion.
Got a concussion, but I haven't. We'll see if he practices. He missed last week.
Freiermuth, Gesicki, Gerald Everett, or Foster Moreau. I'm going Gesicki.
Yeah, if Freiermuth plays, that's who I'm going with. If not, I'm going with Gesicki.
All right. Another tight end question. Pretty similar. Freiermuth, Everett, Cook, Uzoma, or Higbee?
That one's a little easy. I think it's Freiermuth all the way. This order is correct. Minus, I would swap Higbee in front of Cook and Uzoma, but it's Freiermuth, Everett, and then Higbee.
Got a lot of guys trying to find a scrub tight end here.
Wow, it's Everett or Conklin? Everett.
All right, let's see. If Carson Wentz is out, do you sit Michael Pittman? I think you have to.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Pittman just hasn't really done a lot anyway, just because they don't ever need to throw the ball. I mean, they're playing the Raiders, and he's still favored by 7.5. Jesus, is that right? I got to refresh this. Are they still favored by 7.5 with a chance that Carson Wentz is 6.5 now? So I did move a little bit.
Take that. The Raiders are going to win that game straight up. You're not winning with Sam Ellinger at quarterback. I'm sorry. I don't care how many times you give the ball to.
Well, I mean, you do realize Carson Wentz throws for like 100 yards a game, right? Like, you don't have to do much. Like, it's just all Jonathan Taylor.
He's competent. He's smart enough. I mean, Ellinger is a complete zero. There's a chance, say they get Waller back for the Raiders and, they find themselves up, 10-0 at the end of the first period. You're not coming back from that at the Colts if you can't throw. All right, Amy D.
So you're saying to start Pittman. I'm saying bench him.
Oh, no. I'm saying you got to bench Pittman. You can't play him with Ellinger. No way. All right, Amy asked, would you play Justin Jackson? Well, we're going to get Eckler returning or Jeff Wilson in the flex this week, and we could get Elijah Mitchell back. She also has Pollard. I'll be honest, I'd play Pollard.
Yeah, I don't want to play Justin Jackson or Jeff Wilson if their counterparts are back, which we know Eckler's going to be back. So Justin Jackson is out for me. The week before where he did good, you had, Eckler, coming back from an ankle injury in an early game that week on Thursday. So he just wasn't full speed. But I expect Eckler to be back to primary ball carrier, Justin Jackson being more like 20, 30% of the rushing attempts. I don't think you can use him. Jeff Wilson, we'll see if he plays like you're obviously using him. But if not, like out of all those, I'm with you, Drake. I would go with Pollard just because I don't think the other two are going to have a role.
Make sure you're following Dwain and I on Twitter. I'm at Drake Fantasy. Dwain is at Dwain McFarland. The show is at FF Hustle. Lance asks, St. Brown or Elijah Mitchell? So now we're looking at a high-end wide receiver.
If Mitchell plays, I'm starting him over St. Brown just for the upside. But otherwise, you're going to still feel good about getting to start St. Brown.
Keenan Allen. Oh, this is a good one right here. Keenan Allen or Jamar Chase / Higgins in a PPR. You must have both. So you have all three guys.
And you have to pick one? I mean, is this like how many people are in this league?
Right. Chargers are going up against Denver. Denver's got a good secondary.
Yeah, but that's true. But Keenan Allen is pretty much a problem for anyone. Just
wasn't last week.
Gets to work inside, gets to work, against the Texans, against cover 2 half the time, which is where a lot of those passes to the running backs come from. Cover 2 gives up the most targets per route to opposing running backs, not cover 2 man, cover 2 zone. But anyway, neither here nor there. I would put Higgins at the top of this list.
Yeah, and they're playing Kansas City. They're going to have to score back and forth in that.
I mean, if I get to start 2 of those, it even gets hard, right? Just because it's do I just start Chase and Higgins because I know I get the one that goes off? But that's tough, man. Look, this is like rich people problems. Like, go figure this out on your own, Ryan. We love you. Like, you have a wealth of riches there.
I tell people sometimes on Sirius, and I'm just like, you know what? It doesn't matter. You have 4 good players. They're all going to come through. Like, good luck. All right. Mark asks us, New Orleans defense or 49ers defense this week? The Saints are at home against, Cam Newton, Sam Darnold, and the Bucks. The 49ers get the Texans at home.
I'm taking the 49ers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
both good matchups, though. Both are good matchups.
Both are good.
I want the 49ers. I want the Texans, going to the West Coast. I just like the 49ers' ability, just what they can do on the ground. I think their offense is more likely to put the other team in a bind, right, than the Saints. I could see the Panthers coming out and beating the Saints. Like, their offense is terrible. Whereas with the 49ers, you get a defense that's playing decent in a good matchup, and you have an offense that can get you a lead and put more pressure on the Texans.
All right. We got a pick 2. Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, Josh Palmer, Boston Scott, Swift if he goes, or Mike Williams if he goes. I got to tell you, I have no interest in Swift at the moment. I don't think they're going to play him anyways. What's the point here in week 16? But we got to play a few of these guys. Josh Palmer, he's out.
Yeah, Palmer's out of this. Honestly, Mike Williams hasn't done jack crap like in forever. Like, so I think he's out as well. And fine, if we don't want to play, player coming back from injury like Swift, just knowing that, look, my concern is even if they bring Swift back, they're going to keep Reynolds. We know Jamal Williams is going to be involved. Now there's Craig Reynolds guy they like. I worry it's a 3-person backfield and a bad offense. Like, so I'm definitely not worried just about Swift, long-term, but like right now, like, in this instant, I'm worried about Swift like this week. So I think for me, it would be Boston Scott, assuming that Jordan Howard doesn't play. It's probably Boston Scott either way, and Javonte Williams.
That's my pick.
2 players that I'm going with. Carter, it's just a tough matchup, against the Bucks. I'll have him and Scott probably pretty closely ranked, though.
What's your thoughts on Debo Samuel if we see a return of Elijah Mitchell? Now, Debo, we know, has been getting a lot of work in the backfield. Finally saw some targets this past week, and by a few, I mean 11. He went 9 for 159 as a receiver, but we know he's been, handling out of work, helping out with Mitchell out. So say Mitchell returns, what do you think Debo does?
Debo was already he was already working his way into this role in the running game, even when Mitchell was around. So I think he'll continue to get that. My bigger concern with Debo this weekend is, look, if you have Debo, you're playing it. Like, I don't know how you would bench Debo, but my bigger concern for Debo this weekend is honestly Trey Lance. Like, that's what I worry about. I worry about a guy, this offense, as much as, we may harp on Jimmy G, like, he was playing pretty good,
he's a competent NFL quarterback,
playing within the confines, right, of, the Shanahan scheme, getting the ball, to players, with accuracy, but not going to win the game on his own. Trey Lance, much more likely to be the player that could eventually win a game on his own for the Niners, but scares me right now and what it could mean for George Kittle, what it could mean for Debo. I went back and watched every throw he's had earlier in the season, like before he ended up just being a complete non-factor. And look, it was a very small sample size, and I'm not giving up on Trey Lance, but like, man, it scared the crap out of me, Drake. It was not good. Like, I struggled to find much positive, like, at all, like, in any of that. And look, I think the coaching staff saw the same thing. I know there was an excuse to get him out of there, but like, they haven't messed with him. Like, he hadn't been getting any packages, nothing. Like, it's basically, I think it's just like, dude, just chill. Like, just sit over here and learn the game. Got a long way to go. So I'm worried about that. I think that will hurt Debo. I think it will hurt George Kittle, most likely. Again, small sample size, so I don't want to like overstate it too much. I'm worried.
Our buddy Lance asked, Colts or Bears defense this weekend? It's Bears all day, going up against the New York Giants. By the way, great price on DraftKings, only $3,200. They're going to be the chalk defense of the week. You're going to see them in every cash game and tournament lineup from here to Kingdom Come. All right, a couple more here. Gabe Davis, who could be seeing some reinforcements come in Buffalo. MVS or is Allard. I don't know who's
Lazard.
Maybe Lazard there. PPR.
He is.
MVS was
Lazard.
knocked out with COVID too, so MVS could be returning. He was playing really well before he got knocked out with COVID last week.
Yeah, here's the problem for Davis. We just don't know, like, what's his role going to be, because now, I mean, what he needed, he got with Emmanuel Sanders getting the knee injury. That opened the door to his routes. We don't know that he's going to get them back. It could be a rotation. He could really just be back to only being out there for 20% of the dropbacks. Like, there's a wide range on Gabe Davis, and I don't think the ceiling range anymore is, he's going to get 80, 90% of the work. I have a feeling that's probably somewhere in between. We see Gabe Davis out there 50, 60%. We see, Sanders out there 50, 60%, and those are the two guys really battling for the same role unless they go into 4 wide receiver sets, which is really where earlier in the season Gabriel Davis was getting his run from, was really from, the 10 personnel looks. So I'm worried about Davis. I would go with Valdez Scantling, if he is active. If he's not, I think it makes it really easy to go with Lazard.
There's a good chance that we're without Adam Thielen, re-aggravated his ankle. So KJ Osborne could be thrust back into a starting role for the Minnesota Vikings. And in the weeks that Adam Thielen's not there, I mean, his numbers, Dwain, are really good. You're going to see a 14 plus ADOT. You're going to see 30+% of the air yards going to him. Last week, he saw 50% of the end zone targets. I mean, if Thielen's out, KJ Osborne, I don't know if you're going to play him in season long, but, if you want to throw him in a tournament team and DraftKings,
I would play him in season long. He's had wide receiver 21, 17, 64, and 15 finishes in games where Adam Thielen has been out or, has not been able to finish the game. Like, I mean, what else are we looking for? I think he's in the wide receiver 3 conversation, and those numbers I just gave you, I should maybe be a little higher on him. He's got the wide receiver 64 spot in there, but man, wide receiver 21, 17, and 15, like, that's great. I mean, the beauty of the Vikings offense is they funnel it, right? And we thought it might be more split up between he and Conklin. And he's just proven that he's the better player and he's the guy they're going to get it to over Conklin, to go along with Justin Jefferson. So yeah, for me with Osborne, I think borderline wide receiver 2 this week if Thielen's out.
All right, let me get you one more here, Dwain. Appreciate all you guys hanging out with us and following along all season long. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, like the video, comment on it, whatever you got to do on YouTube. Help us out here, all right? You guys know the drill. All right, Smokey the Cat asks, PPR, he needs a receiver, a running back, and a flex. Antonio Brown, he's got Amon-Ra St.
Antonio Brown is in.
St. Brown. I think he might be in too. He might be our
St.
flex.
Brown is in,
Amari
Jacobs,
Cooper,
Pollard, Sony, Ronald Jones also.
Oh boy.
Wait, what is this?
Yeah, he's got a lot of dudes. He says wide receiver.
So he's got Dalvin Cook and Deontay already in. Okay.
Yeah. So I think you're going to play Antonio Brown and Sony Michelle. Of these random dudes. And if you need a flex,
well, he needs a flex, a running back, and a receiver. So
all right, go Sony, go Ronald Jones, go Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
There you go. We got it. So
yep, that would be my order too.
How did your high stakes leagues finish up? How did we win some money?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm already like up, for the season. I don't have any teams like last year, down to the end, like where I'm, like this time last year I was in last year it was over at this point, but I was in the top 5 going into the final week last week. So I don't have a team that high. I have several teams that are in the top couple hundred, but now with the new COVID rules and knowing that mostly probably everybody's going to play this weekend, like I don't see myself being able to catch like lightning in a bottle. Before I was thinking, well, like I've already because I had Kelsey on 3 of those rosters. I had Jalen Hurts on 3 of those rosters. So I've already had to deal with the shit where I can't play like my best players. And so I was thinking, well, maybe it's somebody else's turn this week. Like in some of these teams that are at the top, they're not going to have their best players. I get to have my full lineup. And, that would give me a shot. But it looks like now probably since we're on the honor system, like every NFL player is just basically going to say they're back. Now they could be really sick, and so they may not be able to play or perform well. So I guess there's still a chance. But this rule kind of came into play like 1 week too early for me to feel like I even had an outside shot at winning a big prize. But yeah, I mean, I have several teams that are still like they're going to win money. Like it's just a matter of how much they're not in a good position though to win like the 500K.
I got to show you this, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube. My wife got me this for Christmas. I got the Fantasy Football Hustle zip-up hoodie. Look at this bad boy, huh? Not bad.
Yeah,
it's got a hood,
sharp.
Nice and thick. Showing off my Oswego State track alumni shirt underneath. So, well, there it is, folks. I hope the information we've given you and what you read over at pff.com and Dwain's Utilization Report serves you well. And we can come back next week and we can just celebrate championships. And, I don't know what much we'll have to talk about next week. Maybe Dwain will be talking DFS. We'll be cracking beers. Maybe we'll bring in some special guests. Who knows? But I know I'll get a text from Dwain. He goes, I'm done. I'm out. The season's over, asshole. Hit the bricks. But thank you guys so much for what has been a phenomenal season of the Fantasy Football Hustle. It just gets bigger and better every year. Big shout out. Thanks to all the folks over at Pro Football Focus who help us grow this thing and have been putting out the great social media content over at PFF on Twitter. That's really cool. I mean, geez Louise, just a few years ago, Dwain, you and I had 3 followers. Now I have 4, but you're doing pretty well, I guess. And to see PFF tweeting out things and videos of our show, I mean, it's pretty badass, man.
It is awesome, man. Yeah, I hit 30,000 today or yesterday. I don't know. It was somewhere between today and yesterday. Like, whew, that was pretty cool.
I hit 30.
Whatever. You're like almost like 5 or something. 5,000.
Yeah. Nobody wants. I need better jokes. We'll see.
You're a national radio host. I'm no one.
Wow. Well, I'll see what I can do. I'll get you on this weekend. You can come hang out with us. And if you want to hang out with us even more Thursday. Oh wait, there is no Thursday night game this week, right?
No.
Well, we were going to do a Thursday night hang. Well, we're cutting that off now. So appreciate it, folks. Good luck in your championship games. And remember to never get out hustled. Happy New Year, everyone.